The Senate floor was buzzing with its usual tension, but on this particular day, the atmosphere carried a sharper edge. Cameras rolled, reporters leaned in, and whispers ran across the chamber like wildfire. Elizabeth Warren had just thrown down the gauntlet, her voice slicing through the room as she looked directly at Senator John Kennedy and declared, "You, Senator, are nothing more than a relic of the past." The words hung in the air, heavy and stinging, meant to cut not only his career but his character. For a moment, silence fell. The chamber watched. Some smirked, others winced, but everyone knew something powerful was about to happen. John Kennedy, known for his folksy wit and his ability to cut through pretense with razor-sharp one-liners, sat still in his chair. He didn't flinch, didn't look away, and didn't immediately respond. Instead, he let the insult breathe, and in that pause, he turned the tension into his weapon. Finally, Kennedy rose. Slowly, deliberately, like a man with nothing to prove and yet everything to say. He adjusted his glasses, glanced at the crowd, and began in a voice calm and steady, "Well, Senator Warren, I may be a relic, but let me tell you something about relics. They last, they endure, they carry wisdom from generations past to guide us into the future. And sometimes, when folks are too busy tearing down the old, they forget that it's the foundation holding up the new." The chamber stirred. Even his opponents couldn't help but lean closer. Warren, visibly unsettled, tried to interject, but Kennedy raised his hand gently, commanding the floor. His southern cadence softened his words but made them no less sharp. "You see, Senator, calling someone a relic might get you applause on Twitter, but out where the real people live in small towns, in farms, in neighborhoods where folks know each other by name, they don't want flashy sound bites. They want results. They want leaders who still understand honor, hard work, and humility." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Then he leaned forward, eyes fixed on Warren. "The future doesn't belong to those who shout the loudest. It belongs to those who remember where they came from, and who still respect the wisdom of the past. And if that makes me a relic, then I'll wear the title with pride, because the people I serve your constituents on many they still believe in something called common sense. They still believe in something called America." The chamber erupted, some in applause, others in gasps. Warren's face flushed, her attempt to smirk quickly fading under the sting of Kennedy's words. He hadn't just defended himself, he had turned her attack into a lesson on humility, grounding the debate not in ego but in values. But Kennedy wasn't finished. His voice grew quieter, more personal. "Senator, we all want progress, but progress without respect for the lessons of history is just arrogance dressed up in fancy words. A tree with no roots doesn't stand for long. And if remembering that makes me old-fashioned, then I hope this country never runs out of relics like me." That last line struck like lightning. The applause this time was overwhelming, echoing through the chamber. Reporters scrambled to write down his words. Clips of his speech would later flood the internet, trending across social media platforms. Commentators from both sides couldn't deny either Kennedy had not only defended himself, but had humiliated Warren by exposing the hollowness of her insult. Warren tried to recover, but it was clear the moment belonged to him. She had underestimated the man she thought was outdated, failing to realize that authenticity, wisdom, and conviction never go out of style. As Kennedy sat back down, a quiet hush swept the room. He didn't need to say more. He had spoken not only to Warren but to every American watching at home. For many, his words were a reminder that the values of the past, faith, humility, honesty were not dead relics but living roots that still nourished the soul of the nation. Outside the Senate, reactions poured in. Farmers, veterans, teachers, and small-town families felt as though Kennedy had spoken directly to them. Letters and messages arrived by the thousands, thanking him for standing tall, for refusing to bow to mockery, and for showing that true leadership isn't about being trendy, it's about being timeless. In the end, Warren's attempt to belittle him only backfired, strengthening his reputation as a man of grit, wisdom, and heart. Kennedy himself never gloated about the exchange. Instead, when asked by reporters about Warren's comments, he simply smiled and said, "Relics have a funny way of outlasting fads." And just like that, the message resonated far beyond politics. Honor your roots, respect the past, and never be ashamed of the values that shaped you. Because sometimes, what the world calls a relic is really the backbone that keeps it standing tall.